Good afternoon. So, let me just checking things are running okay. You can see some things are not running, but most things are running, it seems. Give me a moment. I'm trying this new chat feature where you can amalgamate the three chats together. Not that anybody ever really comes on and talks to me, but you know, it's nice to have. If oh, 8 viewers, how is that possible? Wow, very exciting. Yeah, my chat feature, yeah, not that anybody massively talks to me, but hopefully when I get more popular one day, then I'll get multiple people talking to me across different streams, and then it's just easier to manage. But I've got it set up, but it's not working, so that's not very useful, but it doesn't really matter for now. Welcome to my 8 viewers. So today I just wanted to go over the new majors. So I did the old majors, Ripple, Litecoin, EOS and BCH a couple of days ago, and I was hoping to get to... you can't hear me? Do I need to talk louder? Oh, I have 18 viewers. Can you let me know if you can hear me or not? I've got the mic up full, so there's not much I can do if you can't hear me. I don't think I've got music on, so that should be not a problem. Anybody else let me know if you can hear me or not. Normally I don't have a problem with being heard, but that is the one comment I have. What the hell is she yapping about? Which is always polite. Thank you. So yeah, anyway, I did EOS, BCH, Ripple and Litecoin in a previous stream. You can, good. Vertical is always a bit dodgy as well, because that's also a new thing I've added. So I can see you're on the vertical. For me, it's whirring at my end, so hopefully you can see it at your end. Anyway, yeah, we've just had Ripple break the all-time high, and no worries. We just had Ripple break all-time high. We've got Litecoin coming into an area that I was potentially looking for shorts. For those who didn't see the previous stream, I'm just very indecisive across all of these majors. I won't go into detail on this because I've already done that, but I can say the same for these other the new majors. So the new majors I started to do because obviously the old majors were getting a bit dated, but they are useful to see what the market's doing as a whole. But the new majors I added were BNB, Link, ADA and POL, which is the pneumatic. Not really sure how relevant that is now, but DOT, SOL, NEAR and Atom. Thanks Majid, I can hear I'm audible, that's good to know. Yeah, so structurally these are all just similar, different but similar. They're all, you know, we've had an impulse on all of them, we've had a retracement on all of them, and now we've got a second up move. And the question is more, is the second up move going to break all-time high? Obviously we've got things like SOL and BNB, and Link is stronger, but SOL and BNB are the two that are testing the all-time high area. Then we've got other things that are sort of in between, like NEAR. And then we've got things that are more bearish like Atom. But really, you know, we're in this sort of upward impulse, and we're testing even on Atom, which is bearish because of the supply situation, which I'll get to. But we are still testing demand, major demand in the middle of an up move. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's bearish, but it does mean I'm less inclined to look for longs on it. But anyway, like, I'll start at the beginning. If anybody wants to stay the whole stream, that would be awesome. But if you don't, that's also fine. I will, obviously you can watch the stream later, but I'll do summaries for each at the end of each thing, and then I'll timestamp them later. So if you want to, you can go back and just see what the quick summaries are on each one. But for me, I like to do the whole stream, because then if anybody who does want to watch, they can, and or then you can do the or you can, yeah, just look at the key levels later if you're not really interested in all the analysis. So BNB, so just to start with, again, at the start of the year, I'm doing all the major updates. That's the other reason for doing this in so much detail, is I'm doing all the major updates for what's made new, annual, 6 month, 3 month, 1 month supply and demand. in this case, we've made, so if a BNB that's made an annual demand here, I'm not showing my drawings at the moment just because it gets too busy with too much detail on the chart, but green, red, green, you know, we've closed above this candle. It's not significantly above. It's still borderline a swing failure of the all-time high, but that's still an area I would look for longs if we were to revisit that. So we've got a new annual demand, and I suppose just to show why this is important, as you can see back here, again, this would have looked not great on the lower time frames, you know, a big wick off the top of that candle, but then the 2019 candle closed above this candle, still with a swing failure, but when it came back to test that, that's when it took off. So that is obviously a possibility here that it's going to come back. It's not as clean because we have a year of consolidation in between, but if we do come back down to test that zone, then that's an obvious place to look for a long. So sorry, I skipped 6 months. 6 months, we've also got a 6 month demand down right at the bottom. So obviously it can retrace to the bottom of this annual demand and still be bullish on the annual basis. So yeah, hence we have to see my chart just disappeared then for a minute. So if you want to trade the annual demand, that's fine, but then obviously your stop has to be all the way down here, so I wouldn't recommend trading the annual demand in isolation. You're looking for the low time frame changes in structure inside the high time frame. We have a 3 month demand right close to price, and I think there's a 2 month also in there. Yeah, so there's 2 month in there as well, which is also quite nice. So I've got alerts set at that 2 month, so 3 month and then 2 month demand. The only thing I don't like is the trend line stops in that, which I'll show again on the lower time frame, and then we've got the annual level a bit lower. So I've got those two alerted on this, and then also the 6 month would be the next alert. So I'll show the drawings now. So I colour all my zones for anybody who hasn't followed me. So the big grey zone is annual demand, and then there's a 1 month, well, the 3 month inside it, the 2 month inside it, they're all in brown, the monthlies, and then the bright blue with weeklies, etc. And again, if you go to my Telegram channel, if you're interested in that, you can see all the different colours that I colour the zones. So what we've got on BNB is new 3 week demand, which hasn't quite been tested. We had the low last of the week before it was confirmed, so the low is tested a weekly demand here, so we're still in very much bullish on the weekly. So as I said before, the trend line stops just make me a little bit concerned, although I have alerted the top of that month, that 2 monthly, 3 month and 2 month, and then also the annual down at the base of this move. But a lot of these alts do concern me that this move is fairly weak going up, and you know, we can have vertical accumulation on crypto. We've seen that quite often, so it is possible this can suddenly turn into a giant candle, green candle. But the flip side is if we do start coming down, it means these zones are potentially weaker and or may just take large wicks through them because of the low liquidity in crypto. And yeah, so at the moment, yeah, so I had an alert for this weekly demand, which has held. You know, it did have a bounce and then did come deeper inside. So as I say, you're trading, you know, a whole zone rather than like the crosses are at the tops of zones, but it doesn't necessarily have to bounce at the top. But that's obviously where the alert is and where I start looking at what's happening. And then really lower time frame, we're just kind of in this messy sideways structure. And the kind of issue here, so the black cross was when I had an alert for possible swing fail or breakout of all-time high. Or in this case, this particular high, and I would have had an alert there as well. So what you're looking at when it hits these previous key levels is, you know, are you going to, if it breaks up, if it breaks through, you see a close through, you're then looking at the retest and potentially long. Else, if you get the swing failure, you can then look at the short. And again, so this, in both cases, did give a swing failure. This one came down just to the next demand on the 5 day. This one has just held here because it's got demand so close. But it's still like, I'm just still like a little bit indecisive on this. I would have wanted, you know, to see the momentum for the breakout sooner. And I just want to show the previous, so for example here in the previous high, again, you know, you have your high, you have your retracement, and then if it moves up more slowly, then at this, you know, at the previous high, it starts to struggle, and that's when it breaks down again. So this is still a possibility here. I'm not a good breakout trader. I prefer to trade, you know, when price comes back into a demand that I want, rather than trying to trade locally on breakouts. But that's up to you. You know, if it does create, you know, it has created 5-day demand by a hair, it's got a daily inside it. So if you want a FOMO long, or at least long for a scalp here, that's fine. It's just not the way I trade. What else? See, my chat functions still aren't working. So on the BTC pair, so the other thing I look at, so the other thing that's useful to just get the confluence is the BTC pairs. And I think BNB I was quite bullish on before, but then has just this nasty drop off that it's had. We're taking a little time to load. And again, we've got sort of a fairly nasty looking inverse head and shoulders. However, it is still holding demand. Sorry, my screen's flickering a bit. So I'm relatively new to this, so please forgive me. I'm relatively new to streaming on multiple platforms at the same time, so I'm still trying to get the tech sorted out. So anyway, the BTC pair has annual demand, but it's significantly lower. And it had made a 3-month demand here, but not a very good one. There wasn't a very strong move away from it. So I was kind of hoping to be bullish and hoping that this would get a decent bounce off the 3 months to take it up into the 6-month supply above, but it hasn't happened. So there is a possibility now that this is going to start to drift down lower. And yeah, I'm not liking this sort of inverse head and shoulders structure. I haven't checked the volume against it. I haven't got any indicators on the chart at the moment, but yeah, it's not looking ideal on the BTC pair, which then, although having said that, it is at support. So again, if this wants to pick up, it can. So I still think it doesn't really support one thing or the other at the moment on the US dollar pair. It could still break. If the US dollar pair breaks out, this could easily get a move. Even if it just moves up into the new monthly supply here, that would still be a potentially significant move on the US dollar pair. Else, potentially coming down into the 3-month demand down here, and that would obviously mean the US dollar pair is going to break down quite significantly. But it's not overly helpful looking at this at the moment. One of my alerts coming through for Forex. Yeah, so back to the US dollar pair. So, quick summary on this. I am... One sec, let's go to the year. Quick summary for BNB. So I can't not be bullish while we've got an annual demand there. So looking for longs off the top of that and or deeper inside if it does drop deeper inside. 3-month demand is higher, so again, can look for longs on the 3-month demand more aggressive than the annual, although the annual would still be inside the 3 months, so that's fine to also as an area to look for longs. If it starts to obviously flip this, then you're potentially looking for shorts, but just again, be conscious you're in an annual demand, so shorts aren't necessarily going to be high probability until we start to see annual demand break down entirely. And if that happens, it's really not going to be good, because then we're probably in a very, very long downtrend, which I know nobody will like to hear. On the plus side, obviously, like I say, everything's still bullish, but we're just fighting with trying to break out of all-time high at the moment. Lower time frame, there's not much I want to trade on this lower time frame, actually, just because of the choppiness and all the wicks. So yeah, that first long entry that I'd be happy to look for would be this 3-month and 2-month demand. You could possibly trade a swing failure into the 3-weekly here. So if we take out the low of the last 2-weekly candle into this level 656 just below, that's a possibility. But you'd have to be watching low time frame for that. It's not something I'd alert. Else, you know, we're looking for a bigger move up and then coming back to test these levels for longs. No shorts on this for me at the moment. There is a 12-hour supply in here, which is what it's fighting with, but again, it's already hit it multiple times, so there is a fair chance now that if it does want to go higher, unless it breaks down at this point, and need BTC to drive that move, unless it breaks down from here, then there's no shorts that I want to be taking as yet. And like I say, even then, probably unlikely, because we've got the monthly and 3-month and yearly demand right down here. So that's BNB. Moving on to Link. So This also made an annual demand, but really just barely. So it was a very, very slight close over this red candle for last year's candle, and then, but we are testing that. So there is a possibility again, as I just said with BNB, that it could just take off from here. But we just have to see, and it's just it's a bit early days. There's a 6-month demand inside that, a little bit lower. As there's also a 6-month demand down here that hasn't been tested, which was annoying me because that was sort of what I was waiting for longs down here, or this consolidation, but it took off slightly before where I wanted it to. There's a 3-month here that also hasn't quite been tested. It had an immediate test, and we did get longs in there, but didn't have a full test on this recent low. And there's a GBS 3-month demand in there, and then there's also a 2-month demand here. So the first alert I've got set below is 6-month demand with this 4-day just inside and the 1 month a bit lower inside. Put the drawings back on now. My only sort of real reservation of this, and you'll see it on a lot of the charts, is I don't really like triangles, breakouts, and then a retest of the apex of the triangle. Like, you want to see it hold up the top here. If it comes down here, they can be quite dodgy. And you can sort of see similar here, this would have been a lower time frame triangle, and it came down and it did hold a test, that's fine, but it didn't manage to make a higher high before coming through the triangle. The problem with the triangles is they leave so many stops below, and in this case it did take some out, but there's some stops left here, and the problem is, yeah, when it leaves these stops below, there's a fair chance it will come back and take them out before moving again. Like I say, link's slightly different because it did take a lot of stops on that candle in August. So anyway, yeah, the alerts I've got on this are the 6-month here. If it does come down and take out those lows there again, then we could go back into this consolidation here, and it's going to be starting to look more bearish if that's the case. I haven't got the annual demand drawn in here just because it's such a big zone and it barely closed above, but that would be at that level. So that's the sort of most aggressive entry if you really want to jump in this long. And if it's holding, what is it, 19.5-ish area, and starts to consolidate their lower time frame. The difficulty with link again though is that we're now, so it's come up and it's had this retest and a retracement, but now it's come back up and it's properly hit 3-month supply here, or is it, I think maybe a monthly supply. Monthly, let me check the 3-month quickly. No, so the first test did hit the 3-month. I think I've taken it out because it was the same level as the year, but now it's come up into this monthly supply. So like I said at the beginning, the challenge with all of these is like we've got these sort of large triangles on everything, but we've had one down move, and it is possible if you think of Elliott waves or just corrections in general. Like, I'm not a big Elliott wave person, but I do just think about corrections, that if this is the correction of that bigger up move, that could potentially the A wave, this could be the B wave, and this could be the C wave. Alternatively, if it's more bullish, it could be that this is A, B, C, and that's done, and it's a triangle correction. And yeah, like I say, it's not my forte, these, so, and I trade much more supply and demand, but I'm always just conscious of whether I think it's had enough correction for the up move that it's had. And the risk on link is that this low just didn't quite come into demand. And I've seen that on quite a few of the pairs, that either this low, didn't draw very well there, this low or this low aren't necessarily in the best zone. Some have come out more aggressively than you'd want, yeah, so in some, and it's variable. In some situations, when it has bounced just before a level I wanted, that I will see it come back to the level, and in other situations it doesn't. So in this case, at least at this point, it hasn't obviously come back into the zone that I preferred. It can front run you, that's possible, but also what it can do, and this one is probably clearer because it did very clearly swing fail this range, and similarly here. And it swing failed, in this case it swing failed into a weekly, even though it didn't quite make the monthly. So this is probably a cleaner structure and doesn't really have a need to come back to test levels. It's not sort of almost close enough, but that's the risk you run anyway. So we're still at this point, is this a new impulse move to take out the high? I'm just unsure about that. So, and as always, I trade sorry, I'm just looking at my stream again. I seem to have another problem with the stream, which is annoying. Oh no, it's back. Yeah, so excuse me, lost my train of thought slightly. Yeah, so if it comes back down here, I'm looking for longs. The aggressive short, so given this is a monthly supply, I do think it's worth looking for aggressive shorts. So the aggressive short, in this case, you know, there would have been one on 5-day supply here, but it had already tested before I got around to it. I did have, so initially I'll just show the previous possibilities I had. So I had the initial short, blind short I call it, you know, when the price is just coming straight up into a blind level on the monthly supply up there. And then, you know, it did have a decent reaction off it, and with hindsight I can see it hit that yearly level. So I went for, I thought it was worth trying for a retest short. That one didn't work, so it did run through there for the higher high. Then this was sort of a bit of a meme entry. I put a joke against the alert, just sort of saying, you know, it's a 5-day demand, why not try a long underneath monthly supply? And it did get a small scalp move off that zone, but yeah, ideally you would have taken profit up here, and it didn't get quite that high. We're now coming back up into a daily supply here. So the difficulty now is, you know, is this just going to start another bigger up move, or is this going to reject here and come down deeper into demand? It's still a very shallow correction, but if the market's very bullish, that is a possibility. But yeah, I have alerted this daily up here on the possibility that it comes through, takes the stops above here, and then drops down into the monthly demand. Failing that, you know, if it does break out, then we're looking at a 3-day, 2-day supply up higher, or it's actually going to be above the monthly. But the levels become unclear when you start to look at dailies from years ago. But potentially I'd be looking to take out that high now, having had some 2 hits on this 3-month zone, and with the annual demand. So I guess the main thing to note here is that this short is fairly high risk, because we have this new annual demand that may, you know, just cause a huge impulse possibility. The BTC pair, I'm trying to remember if that supports. Okay, yeah, so I'm not loving this BTC pair. So this has made an annual supply. Hide the drawings there. So as you can see here, it's had a green candle, the price has moved up, and then last year the price has dropped significantly and has closed quite a long way below that body of that candle. It's not below the wick, so it's a medium probability supply, but it's certainly something I wouldn't want to be longing into if price was to get back up there. It already had a 6-month around the same level, which is what it tested previously, and as I said, like that, these give you good entries for your short entries, or to know when the US dollar pairs are potentially going to stop their moves. This is something, so again, like it's a challenging structure, because we're still in this 3-month demand. We've come almost to the bottom of it, maybe swing failed the bottom of it there. Yeah, just swing failed the bottom of it. We haven't quite dropped into this monthly demand, but yet we now have 6-month and 1-year supply above. So on this, I'd be looking potentially, you know, if we were to get as high as here, then you're looking for that short back down into there. And that's obviously a very high time frame. But even with the rejection off the 6-month supply here, this is not something that I would overly be confident of longing into 6-month supply again. I would at least, maybe if it had come down into this zone for the longs, but again, because it hasn't, because it's still sort of holding midway, I'm not overly confident with longs on this. So as a result, it would mean I'm not overly confident of longs on the US dollar pair. And the BTC pair doesn't have to dictate, you know, if the whole market's going up, if BTC is going up, and then it takes out, if BTC wants to take out, you know, an all-time high and go on a mission, then this can certainly follow and still have the BTC pair fall. The US dollar pair can follow, but have the BTC pair still fall. So it's not the be-all and end-all, and it's in fact I find more useful when you're kind of going, do I want to short this zone or do I want to short this zone? You check confluence on the BTC pair. Quick summary on link then. So again, we've created summary for link. We've created annual demand. we've tested into it, so it's possible this takes off on a mission now. It's a very large zone, so I don't know if it's going to have the strength straight off the top of the zone, but it's possible. There's a 6 month slightly deeper inside, so that's kind of one of the areas that I'd start looking for long entries if we are going to get a retest down there. And the 3 month is sort of coinciding with the annual level a bit higher, so may have already been tested. There's a 3 month and 2 month down the bottom here as well if we were to get that low. And then there's a monthly there. So the alert is initially set for the 6 month demand, but then there's a 4 day just inside and the 1 month lower. So those are the two zones inside I'd be looking for longs on. The shorts, like I say, remain risky because of that annual supply, the annual demand. So I haven't got the annual demand drawn in, but it's from this grey line downwards. So shorts remain risky. However, because we're in this triangle structure and we're testing the previous point of breakdown, I still think it's worth looking for shorts. The aggressive short would be for a lower high on the daily, but this is probably not very high probability due to the annual demand. And then failing that, I would start to look again higher towards the top of supply. And you know, even if that's to give a scalp, if the annual plays out, then obviously we would expect to break all-time high, but then obviously you get waves in between. So I think it's reasonable to start looking for shorts on taking out this high, given the test we've now had 2 tests of this 3 month, 1 month supply zone. Well, at the moment, nice little consolidation, low time frame, but it just needs a bit more time to see what's going to play out from here. Like I want to see that level tested. You know, are we going to make weekly demand? At the moment, there is also an immediate weekly supply, which makes me not want to long this at right now. But if this comes up here, tests, stays up there and flips this to a weekly demand, then potentially you've got longs later off that level. So that's Link. Checking if there's any questions, doesn't seem to be. ADA. So ADA is another one that's sort of more bullish when you look at the very high time frame, but was still annoying because didn't quite test the zone I wanted it to test. So again, down at the bottom here, I would have wanted it to test a bit lower into here, but it's kind of come off higher at the top here. From the annual perspective, this hasn't created a new annual demand. So this is the dubious annual demand that it would have had back here, because obviously that's when Binance opened trading on this. I don't know if there's any history. I try and use the oldest history chart, but there might be a bit more history than this, I'm not sure. But obviously it has kind of picked up support around that level. Hasn't made a new annual demand though, but obviously has had a significant move up. Has made a 6 month demand in here. So that's potentially where I'd look for the higher time frame longs. But again, we're still in this triangle of, are we doing an up move, a retracement of that drop, and are we going to get, as I just drew for Link, you know, are we looking at A, B, C, or are we looking at A, B, C, and then continuation? So just trade the zones as they come to them. Like I make these speculations, and because I look at all time frames, I tend to find like looking at what might happen in future quite challenging, because obviously on the daily that's very different to the monthly, etc. So looking with the drawings on the lower time frame, so at least this doesn't really have significant supply. It's got a monthly supply in here, and it's got a couple of weeklies. And obviously we had this very strong move, which actually was quite annoying. It really threw me off. I was very bullish on ADA for quite a long time because we had this very clean 3 month demand. It had broken local supply, hadn't made it to the next supply at this point, hadn't made it up there, so it had space. But then, this is the monthly chart, it took, you know, it had an initial very small bounce off the zone, but then it just took so many months to come deeper before then throwing a typical crypto massive candle. So I'm getting stream warnings again, but I just have to work through them at the moment and figure out what the problem is afterwards, because there are just too many. So yeah, so I am like potentially more bullish on this. I just don't like, again, that it hasn't come down to a decent level at the lows. But if it's got 6 month demand, it's got a monthly inside, so certainly start looking for longs if once we hit this 6 month level. Failing that, the monthly inside, we do have a bit of risk of taking out those trendline stops there. But again, we'll just see what happens. I didn't have an alert, I think, at the high here. I had a couple of alerts that failed through here, I think on the monthly supply for shorts. Didn't have an alert at the high here because my alert was just on this 3-week supply, so it was very, you can see it's just there, it's very slightly above where this wick came to. So again, if we do come up and take this out on a swing failure, that's a nice area for a short, or failing that, we've got the weekly above there. Lower time frame, there's just not much. Again, we're just sort of in this choppy, so a lot of the market's just been very choppy over Christmas, so we just need to see, you know, this, I had an aggressive long, I think it would have been a 3-day or a 3-day demand here in the hope of getting up to there, but again, just made the lower high, so we did get a bounce there, made the lower high. Then, like a lot of the majors, we have a 3-day demand, we have a 3-day demand, so these up moves were challenging because they all created monthly 2-week to 3-week demands at the bottom. Most of them didn't test, and this goes for most alts. Then we made a 3-day, and then we made another 3-day. In various cases, there's 2 days, 1 days, 5 days throughout this area. So it's hard to know how much we're going to get the retrace. At least here, if we've got the 6-month level, there is a 4-day or 3-day that can be traded at the level if it revisits there, rather than having to have a stop that's miles away. Hence, it's worth alerting that zone, but again, I haven't alerted. This would be the more aggressive entry, so you can look there if you want, if you think it's going to get a test. Got some yen movement, and again, so I had a short entry, so we had a 5-day supply here, so I had a short entry for a retest on that, and again, it did get a move down, but by then it made a 4-day demand, so it's just bouncing around in this local triangle at the moment. And again, it's now come up into daily supply, but it's not something I want to kind of short yet, because obviously this is one of the stronger of the majors, but again, just see what the reaction is here. Next possible short entry would be taking out the high, I think. And the BTC pair. So what have we got here? So we're obviously in a 6-month supply. I think this might have made, does it make an annual supply? No. Okay, so I've had a bounce off the low. So I was, one of the other reasons I was more bullish on this compared to a lot of the other majors is that this was one of the few that had, you know, a lot of the other majors have made lower lows. But this is one of the ones that it was in monthly demand on the BTC pair, and it was in that 3-month on the US dollar pair. And again, just took so long to move that it became challenging. It did have a test into 6-month supply, which had pushed it all the way back down again, but has now obviously bounced and is coming up relatively strongly. So we have a new monthly demand at the base again. If it's going to come back down there, that's what we're looking for, our higher low. So essentially we're looking for this kind of structure. Given it's in 6-month supply, it could still make a lower low. The time frames are higher on the supply side to the demand side, but then overarchingly we're just in this giant range. So there is a possibility, you know, we're now just going to move to the top of the range. Whether Ada's got the strength to do that, I don't know, but I guess we'll see. But yeah, so again, while I'm bullish on this, I can't be bullish in supply. I want to see this pull back. So therefore, that's kind of support, potentially looking for a short on ADA, and then potentially getting a pullback into one of the more immediate demands, hopefully not all the way down here. Next on the list is POL. So POL was the sort of new version of Matic. I drew because obviously TradingView doesn't give the history like that, I drew the Matic chart just so I could see, but I've also, so you can get the Matic chart off charts.cointrader.pro, so that's the links there if you want to go and have a look at it. So the difficulty with Matic, is when you look at the full polygon chart on charts.cointrader.pro, is that you can see it's made an annual supply, and we do have that on the POL chart as well, but it's slightly higher when you look at the full chart. On the flip side, when you look at the lower time frame, the ranging structure, so you can see the annual supplies in there in the grey, but it's a big breakout and we're still holding this giant range. It's come down to the bottom of the range. The POL chart doesn't have this wick. I don't know if that's when it was announced and it dumped. I think when it was announced it was going to change to POL. We don't actually have that wick on the existing chart, so I'm not sure how valid it is, but either way, this current low has now taken out that previous low. So again, on this time frame, it looks decent, and it looks like it's a long consolidation which then could have a bigger breakout. But the difficulty is that annual supply. So again, when you look at the POL chart, you can see, again, we've got this big red candle, we've closed below that candle. I put 5-day supply on there, and then there's a yearly level inside, and so there is a 5-day at around that same level. Excuse me. So this is, yeah, it obviously looks like much more of a downtrend when you look at it on this time frame, but obviously we know that this has got this history back through here. But again, it's difficult because I don't want to long into an annual supply, and that's would be much more inclined to look for shorts there. So yeah, my bias on this is to look for shorts in annual supply, but whilst being conscious we're in this giant range. But if I see the supply flip again, that's fine. You know, if we do throw a giant green candle and shorts don't work, then they don't work. We're not always right. Lower time frame, there isn't much new on the monthly. So below here we had a 3-week demand, so I've already got a long off that. But again, it hasn't moved very far and has come back to test deeper. Do have that swing failure there, so again, I'm probably going to go and take out that previous high. Again, if we drop a bit deeper in this zone and the market remains moving quite slowly, there is a 2-week demand there. And then, yeah, so I've already talked about there being a 5-day supply at the top of here, so if we're going to get the lower high, that's a decent place to look for a short. And again, the difficulty with some of these alts, and I don't know if we've seen that on the previous charts and I just haven't commented, but there's 5-day supply and then there's a daily at the top there that hasn't been tested, or not quite been tested. So again, it's hard. I'm being slightly more aggressive because when we've had bigger down moves on the majors before, because they can be weaker, because they're less interesting to a lot of the market than you know, PopCat and the narrative altcoins, then it's possible they don't test. I mean, this may not even test there, let alone here. So I'm being slightly more aggressive on the short alerts on this. But it's possible even this rejects here before it comes down. So it's just hard to know how aggressive to be, because it really depends on what the market's doing as a whole and what Bitcoin's doing as to whether, you know, this is going to be, you know, is this strong enough off this demand to do a full retracement of that move? Is it strong enough to make a new high off this move? And that's the kind of judgment you're trying to make. In this case, we're coming from a 6-month supply. So again, obviously had that alerted previously as a short. We're coming from a 6-month supply. So I expect, you know, a weekly, 2-week, 3-week demand to probably break. So I'm not, for me, the longs are a less high probability and the shorts are higher probability. But again, it remains to be seen. I haven't got a BTC pair on this because of having it from trying to use the Matic chart and the history. It's too difficult to add the BTC pair into this as well, and not necessarily so critical. So yeah, a quick summary on POL. So what I'm looking at is potentially I'm more on the bearish side on this. We've made a new annual supply. We've already coming off 6-month supply. I've got a short on this 5-day supply alerted there. There is a daily above that wasn't quite tested. So if this does run through, you can also look for shorts a little bit higher. Failing that, then I'd be looking at a 5-day supply up here, because there were a few trendline stops here that I thought previously could be targeted. This wick just took out that, but didn't quite take out those. So again, if it does manage a new impulse up, then that would be the kind of next zone I'm looking at shorts. From the long side, like I say, they're not as high probability because of coming off 6-month supply, but there is an untested 2-week just below and a 5-day inside it. Failing that, I would look at this weekly again, and as I pointed out on the so the CoinTrader.pro Matic equivalent charts, since we don't have the history on the POL chart anymore, there is a weekly demand down here that this previous wick went into that the POL chart doesn't show. So I would potentially look for longs at the point of where that wick is on the previous chart, which is essentially around this level. So that's the POL summary. And I just need to drink some water, so give me a moment and I will be right back. I'm going to, and then I will look at Sol, Dot, Atom and Near as the remainder of the majors. But yeah, just give me a couple of minutes and I'll be back. Hi again. Okay, I'm back. Right, we're to look at first Sol probably, because that's probably what most people are interested in. Excuse me. So, Sol's it again, another challenging one. All of these I'm finding fairly challenging, to be honest, and none of them are particularly clean. So, again, this is another one. It did create an annual demand, so I think so far we've got BNB, Link and Sol are the only ones that created an annual demand, and it has just tapped off the top of it. So again, it's possible this is just going to take off from here. An annual demand down there was never tested. This one is not strong, and the difficulty here is that we do have a swing failure of the highs. So there's no new 6 month. The 3 month I think is around the same as the annual. There is a new 3 month down here. Or not a new one, an old 3 months down there that was never tested. There's a new 2 month in here that hasn't been tested. And then there's a monthly here, which I was waiting for ages, but again, also just kept getting slightly front run on. And it's got a monthly indirect there at around the same level as where the yearly is. So I didn't get to this in time, so therefore haven't updated. So I didn't manage to get the long off the yearly, but I did have a long off that monthly at the same level. So the longs on this have been pretty good so far. So I had a short for the swing failure of the high, a possible short entry. And then other than that, I've just generally been biased long on this until I can see some demand breakdown. So I had a long entry and weekly demand there. There was an aggressive long here, I think on a 3-day or something, but that just got a bounce and didn't manage to sort of break out from the high again. Much what we've seen on many of the other alts. So we had the long entry here, then obviously it didn't get past 5-day supply here. And then it's come back deeper to test this monthly level. So that gave a really nice long entry a couple of days ago. Failing that, we've got this 2 month demand down here, which is worth watching. And then that monthly that I said was just slightly missed on this test here from back, when was that? August. And again, so the other risk I have on this is this, again, the triangle structure that I've talked about, and I talked about this yesterday in the Ripple video, and it's a common structure in crypto and in FX, that when you have a triangle like this, and then we get a breakout, quite often it will just do a distribution and then run straight back through the triangle. It could just break out, like that would be fine if it just kept going, but it's if it retests. So if it does retest here, there is a chance that it's just going to come straight back through the triangle. And at the moment we're holding, so there's no reason you can't take longs there. So at the moment, in this case, it is holding, but we do run the risk, I think, of testing supply here. I've got the second alert here, testing the weekly supply, and then running back through this zone. And part of the reason for that, I think, is because these triangles have, they tend to leave a lot of stops. When all the stops here have the potential to be hunted, and then crypto being generally low liquidity, if the price does come back down and test here, like it could just wick straight through everything, and then may or may not result in a bigger breakdown. But so what I'm kind of looking for here is if this is going to start making some distribution pattern. And we had a similar situation here, but on a lower time frame. This is obviously a much bigger consolidation, so maybe that sort of makes it stronger, but you can see a similar type thing here. We had a smaller triangle, we got the move up, we came back, we did test the apex a couple of times there and there, but then ultimately we broke back through it. So that's the risk I think we've got here from the long side, coupled with this swing fail of the high, of all-time high. And the other thing is on the BTC pair, which I'll get to in a minute. So those are the zones I'm looking at, that monthly, and then possibly, if all the stops got taken down into this daily just below the monthly is another structure that we could see play out, because again, it's a zone that was just missed. It's not ideal, like these, when you start to start taking these zones in, you're knife catching a bit, but either way, I think you should just, you need to be watching price. They're not zones that I would just trade blindly if price does turn bearish from here, because it is crypto and you can get these significant down moves, so it's very possible that it's going to test the bottom here. And people will say it'll never come back there, but I mean, I'm pretty much, I would be never 100%, but close to 100% that it's going to come back all the way down here at some point. Whether it goes to 1,000 first is another matter. But yeah, anyway, those are the immediate levels I'm looking at on this. for possible longs, and yeah, like I say, that weekly supply I think is worth watching for a possible short. I think lower time frame, there are a few stops up here, so just do watch out for potentially a wick through that weekly supply though. Then the difficulty on this is the BTC pair. So okay, it doesn't have, so we have a 3-month demand, which you can see where we've come, wasn't very strong, we didn't close much above it, but this brown zone here. And now we've come quite deep and broken down from the triangle consolidation on this, because obviously the rest of the market was going up, but Sol was just going sideways for quite an extended period. And the problem, what's happened now, let's just show the 3-month chart without the drawings, is that it's now created a 3-month supply above. So sorry, I think that was a monthly demand. And it created a 3-month supply above. So now I think this is a little bit of a risk, but we could find support just under these wicks if it comes back here. But again, it's a risk that it comes down to here, and then also a risk on the lower high that again we get that ABC that I've talked about elsewhere in the video, that we're doing an A, B, C, and we're coming back to a clean, decent zone below that we've missed on this test. So again, don't be surprised if you start seeing things like that happen. But in the short term, so normally I wouldn't alert the BTC pairs, but on this, because of the possibility of just bouncing here, I've had this I think it's 2 weekly demand alerted for a little while and it hasn't come down. But yeah, so as I say, we've got this 3-month supply. So while it's possible, this is still in a range, it's broken down the triangle, and we have seen these situations before where it'll come down, break the triangle, make a supply, and then just go straight back through it, and it's just a fake down. It is still in the range. We are still in monthly demand, so it's still on tenterhooks, but it makes me a lot more wary about longs on the US dollar pair. So yeah, be conscious of that if you're longing the US dollar pair, and and again, for me, I'm not a breakout trader, so I wouldn't be longing up here particularly anyway, except for scalps maybe, if I saw there was momentum coming back in. But just be a little bit careful here, and just don't hold. We are at a high. Yes, we might break out, but don't be the retail trader that buys the top and then holds while it corrects all the way back down to $23, because that's about a 90% drop from where we are now. So do be careful, be conscious of the possibility of doing a stop hunt of these trendline stops. Again, I think a bit like, was it Link? It has taken out the earlier stops here. I think I still have the triangle from back here because it picked it up as support again later. So it has taken out some of those stops there, but again, it's left a whole bunch more here. So if it wants to come back down, similar to the BTC pair, down to the bottom of the end of this range, it's possible, with this being a deviation outside of the range. So be aware of that. And yeah, so just the quick summary of Sol is, yes, we're bullish, but we're bullish very cautiously because we're at all-time high. We might have swing failed all-time high. We do have an annual demand made by a hair in there, which price has just tested this week. So it's possible we just take off here. On that basis, the weekly supply is a higher risk. However, the swing fail makes it worth considering. So again, I still remain a little bit on the fence until I see a proper breakout of this. But the annual demand makes me nervous of shorts, and the swing failure makes me nervous of longs. So it's a difficult one. Maybe just don't trade it. That's up to you. But I'm just giving the analysis as I see it. If this does start to come down lower, then we've got what was that? A 2 monthly demand in there, and then a monthly demand lower. And then failing that, we can potentially have a bigger drop. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. That's just it for the US dollar summary. But again, just to reiterate, part of my reservations are due to also on the BTC pair, this having broken down the triangle and having made a 3-month supply. So again, that makes me potentially slightly more bearish on Sol, unless I see this come back through there, retest and take off the other side. So it could be a fake down, but it could also, this is very much looking like a distribution pattern at this point. So it's entirely possible that this now starts to dip significantly lower. Yep, so that's it for Sol. What next? Nia. So near I was more bullish on for a while because I think the BTC pair was stronger for a while, but again now has possibly dropped off. So again we have this large up move which then retraced all the way to the bottom, and now we've retraced back to the top. So again, not dissimilar to anything else, now just back into this giant triangle scenario. In the case of near, it hadn't quite tested monthly supply up here. There was a monthly level a bit lower that it did run into, so it is possible we get another move up into monthly supply from there. I think, let me just check the annual. So no annual demand, no new 6 month demand, nor 3, nor 2. So all we had on this was actually very similar to many alts, is that we had this sort of move up into monthly supply, and then we came back down and we have a monthly demand really close by. So I had a short from the monthly supply in there and a long from the monthly demand. And then again, we just on the smaller time frame, we've just got this triangle as well. Again, possibility of a stop pump below. Similarly, so again, because of the monthly supply and the rejection in there, I put a short entry at 5-day supply inside, or 4-day supply inside this. But as I said, there's a possibility, you know, this is still in a bullish uptrend here, so this could still take out the high. So this is an aggressive unconfirmed short. If that short works and we start to see the turnaround, then the next level of interest would be 5-day demand, like taking out some of these wicks in that demand. If that then flips this monthly demand to monthly supply, then we've probably got bigger problems. Down here, there's a 3 month demand, so again, that would be the level below that's worth watching if we get a retest down here. The BTC pair again was not great on this, like it was better. So on the swing fail of the low, that was really good for the longs back a while ago, but it's now made an annual supply here. I think it already had a 6 month or something at the same level. No, perhaps not. No, it had, so it's making choppy monthly supplies. You know, so I guess it's already tested this yearly level on the lower time frames, but not since it's been confirmed. So again, you know, this does not make me feel particularly bullish on this, particularly because we don't even have really a decent. So there is a kind of a monthly level here, and then, you know, we've got 2 week demand that we're in now, but this is still like the larger downtrend. So again, I can't be, you know, the positive side is that we have this swing failure here, but we've also taken stops above here now, and we're coming back for the retest. So this, you know, this retest could propel us up here. But for me, the bigger picture is still, and now with that annual supply, is still that we're in a downtrend. This is a bearish retest, happens to have a swing failure, and that we're targeting new lows. I will change that thesis if I start to see some supply flip. But again, coupled with having monthly supply above that got tested and rejected, having a new monthly supply which has been tested and potentially rejected now, like I can't be particularly bullish on the near BTC pair. As a result, that kind of supports more to be short side on the US dollar pair. But again, that still doesn't mean that it can't go here first. Like if BTC drags the whole market up a bit higher, it's possible this moves up here, but the near BTC pair still drops further. But yeah, so the quick summary on near is the BTC pair makes me slightly more bearish because it's got a new annual supply. There's no new annual demand or anything on this. All it is bouncing between a monthly supply and a monthly demand in a triangle pattern. Still can be a bearish retest following this correction. So we need to see, you know, I would rather see this move deeper. If you've got longs off this monthly demand, that's great, and then you can hold on to them and see if we're making a new high, but obviously that's a high time frame trade. We're in a monthly range here. We are on a monthly demand, but again, I think this is fine, a fine chart to trade both ways until we actually see a bit more about what's going to happen. Not really much else on that. I think there's a 5-day demand in here. I'm not convinced by this level, to be honest. I think I've just had it in for a while, and I think it got just missed on that wick. So, but again, yeah, if we do take out that wick on a swing failure, that 5-day demand is a possibility for a long, and then we've got a 3-month demand down here that's a long possibility. 5-day supply and monthly supply above are the 2 potential short entries on this. Moving on. Did I do dot already? Am I going crazy? No, I don't think I did dot yet. Hopefully I don't end up doing things twice. I've done all the analysis myself earlier on this, and then I was doing it again, just talking about it a bit more for the video. Hopefully I won't repeat myself, but I guess I can cut it out of the final cut if necessary. I don't believe so. Anyway, so this had a monthly demand down here, but I've deleted, I think, because it potentially wicked and took out the low of it there. But just in case it kind of finds support again on that level, I'm going to put the level back in. So this is a slightly more interesting chart actually, because at least this isn't in a high time frame supply. So I don't think this it didn't make an annual demand, unfortunately, nor a 6 month, nor 3, nor 2, nor 1. So this really hasn't made any decent demand at all. We've still got a monthly demand down at the base that hasn't been tested. But this kind of reminds me a little bit of Link actually before it broke out. But Link did make a 3-month demand, and that's what really propelled it upwards, and this hasn't. So, but I think it's kind of worth watching. You know, it has taken out the lows here. It has come back for the retest. It's making a lower high, but again, there's a possibility it makes a higher high at this point. But certainly watch this, you know, if it starts coming back down into the bottom section for new long entries. Mainly just because it's got the space. You know, while we're still finding resistance at this level, the level of breakdown, like if it does get back into this upper range, then yes, it's got some supply here, but it could potentially really move from that point. So yeah, if it does come up here, then we've got 3-month supply to contend with as the first thing, 3 month and 3 week with the monthly inside. On the lower time frames, probably lower probability shorts than some of the other ones for the reasons I've just said, but you know, I do have an alert on the 5-day here. You know, it would be nice if we get a rejection on the 5-day to take us back down into demand down here before that move. And there is a daily at the top of this that I haven't got alerted as yet, but I think it would depend what kind of strength in demand, new demand I see as to whether I alert that later, but it's possible this 5-day can get run through in favour of a retest of the daily up there. So those would be the short entries of interest. Long entries, there is what's down here, a 5-day demand, and then yeah, and again, because of the chop, it's just hard to choose. So there's a 5-day, and I've just put in the comment, you know, there's a 2-week and a monthly right below that. And then, you know, if we do end up making a lower low or taking out these lows again, there is still an untested 3-day right at the bottom here. But I kind of like this chart. This makes me feel slightly more confident than some of the other ones. But let me just check the BTC pair because I can't quite recall. Yeah, so the BTC pair I think is challenging, like many of them. You know, it's just in this eternal downtrend. I don't think there was a new annual supply on this. We already have a 6-month up there. So got there's no new supply, but there are monthly untested, 2-month untested, 3-month, 6-month, 1 year, all untested up here, but that's obviously quite far away. The problem we have obviously is we're in this epic downtrend, and yeah, obviously a few of the majors still show this, yeah, so is it going to make a higher low? So we're in this big downtrend, and we now have a weekly demand at the low. Kind of just about got a weekly supply in here as well, which isn't great. So it did run up into the 2-week and then came back down to test. So the problem is now is it going to hold? We don't have any history here to the left to know if this is an area that everybody wants to buy this. So it's still highly tentative, but you know, if it can make a higher low, then potentially we could get pushes higher into some of these untested supplies. However, and you know, we do have a strong move supporting that. However, obviously, you know, we had a less strong move, but you know, we did have an up move here that people would have got quite bullish about. But then obviously it's just ultimately, you know, it's tried to test, not gone higher, and then eventually broken down. So at this point, you know, yes, it might go up, but really we're still in the kind of point of guessing. You know, we have a demand there, so worth considering longs, and then, like I say, supports longs on the US dollar pair. But whether it's gonna, you know, continue into a decent mood, it's far too early to tell, really. But I think it's worth keeping an eye on, and then coupled with the fact that the US dollar pair is looking like it has potential. Yeah, so a quick final summary on DOT. So the BTC pair is dubious, still in a major downtrend, but might give us some hope, like if we can start seeing it build up strength. The US dollar pair, I like the fact that it's not really in significant supply here, and we're on second test of it. So while I've got shorts in, they're not necessarily high probability shorts, particularly on these. I think some of the other majors would be better. If we get a bigger move, I'd be looking at shorting around somewhere in this 3-month supply, and obviously we look at the low time frames as and when we get there. If we do get, like in a perfect world, this would give us a little drop first before that move, and that's when I'd be much more comfortable, confident to long. I've got a more aggressive alert on the 5-day demand in here. Let me show you the 5-day because it's just a clean 5-day demand there. I don't love, the couple of wicks just above it, but yeah, again, it could take a wick down a bit lower and then move. There is, so the 5 days are more aggressive, but there is a 2-week and a monthly just inside, so you're looking kind of in that general area. And to be fair, like one thing I haven't really covered in this actually is, really to get reliability on this, it's worth like doing the fibs. I think I had them, but yeah, so the 61 is on the top of that 3-day actually, and the 70 is a little bit lower. I think this is going to be the log scale, so on the linear scale, we're probably already at the 61. Yeah, so we're already kind of wicking through the 61, and that would be the 78 level. So at least we know we're sort of buying in a discount for this up move. But yeah, I wouldn't mind the price being a little bit lower on this before looking for longs. So in a perfect world, it'll come up here, reject here, and come down for my entry. This entry, again, if it does move all the way up here, just again see what happens. It's not the best daily supply, but it is possible, if we get some strength, that we're going to run through some of these 5 days, stop hunt them, and then take the rejection from a little bit higher. So those are the levels of interest on DOT. And then finally Atom. So Atom I've always been more bearish on, well, not always, but for recently. So what we had on Atom, I don't think it's a new annual, let me just check. Okay, so now there is a new annual supply on Atom, so I'm certainly more bearish on this. So Atom, again, was just a bit awkward because what we had was, it hadn't tested this 6-month demand, but at this point, when this, the July 2023, the end of 2023 candle closed, it created a 6-month demand there. The problem is, then when it wasn't a very strong one, it didn't close that much higher, it didn't take out either of the wicks. But then, so I think it did try and bounce off it briefly, but then it came down and it closed back through it, so it flipped it to a supply. So that's when we had this retest more recently, I was much more bearish on this. Again, the difficulty is we've got a 6-month demand down here, which has now been tested, so it's just, again, bouncing between these two significant zones. But with that new annual supply, again, yes, while we might move a bit higher, up to what's that, closer to 10, it's not, again, very high probability for me right now. So, if price can manage to get back through, so there's nothing new on the 2-month or 1 month, there's only got a new 1 monthly demand all the way down there, and then we've got a monthly here that hasn't been tested yet. But yeah, so the grey area here is the annual supply. Yeah, so I would potentially look for shorts if we're going to come back into that area. And what do I put here? So I've got a 5-day supply and 4-day inside. Okay, yeah, so I think I hadn't really updated the entries on this now, but yeah, this area where that annual is, now up where that daily is, are potentially going to be decent probability shorts if we get back there. And then down on the long side, we've got a monthly demand down here, should we get the monthly re-entry. But this I'm certainly more bearish on. I'll come back to the levels a bit more in a minute, but let me just look at the BTC pair. Yeah, and I think it's not dissimilar to DOT, so again, yes, it might do a bounce, but we do have this new annual supply. It's got a lot of space. So if this does decide to get stronger, yes, I won't be bullish on this like long term, but for a move from this to this, certainly we'll have the US dollar pair breaking the annual supply there. But the problem is here again is that it's had very unclear supply here, so it's not surprising we've got this sort of big move and managed to wick through all of this. My phone's beeping at me, let me just check. yeah, so again, you know, it's a decent, strong move, but now we're getting the retest, so we really need to see if this retest holds. You know, if you start to see strength on this, then great, change the thesis on the US dollar pair, and this is potentially then that maybe that will break supply. But at the moment, you know, again, it's just in this epic downtrend, and similar to just what we saw with DOT, like it can, you know, try and bounce here and then just start to drift and continue the downtrend. From a 3-week perspective, while you know that looks like a strong move, sure, on the 3-week chart, this is still a downtrend on the 3-week. All it is a simple retest to 3-week supply where we expect a new low. So yeah, that's got potential, but doesn't make me overly bullish. So the summary for entries on Atom, excuse me. Yeah, the summary for entries on Atom, the BTC pair is obviously still in a big downtrend, but has had a significant up move, so could potentially bounce now, but like my bias is still down on that until I see proof of a bounce. The US dollar pair is the same. It has a new annual supply up here. It already had the 6 month, which is where I had a short entry from previously. It pushed a little bit inside that, and then it's like obviously dropped down. I did have an alert here on the 5-day demand for a long, which has got slightly front run twice. So again, I'm not going to reset. I actually think it was 4-day demand. So I'm not going to reset that alert. We are obviously still in this local uptrend. So again, possible we just hold here and move up. But because of coming off 6 month supply, I'm again comfortable with at least having alerts for possible short entries, and then we'll just see what happens when they hit. So the more aggressive short entry would be on the new 5-day supply here. There's a 4-day inside, and then there's still this daily up here. So it's certainly, again, just consider this whole area if we do get a bigger move inside it, because we've got the annual supply coming in there. If we suddenly see some massive burst of strength and we get through annual supply, then great, and you can flip it and long on the other side of it. But at this point, I can't be overly bullish on this with what I'm saying on this and the BTC pair. And like I say, there are other charts that will have like higher probability longs than this. There is a monthly demand down here, so I do have that alerted for possible long if we come down lower. But again, the bigger structure with the 6 month supply, I would generally expect to go lower on this. The challenge, again, a little bit on the higher time frame, is having 6 month demand here. So again, not dissimilar to a lot of the charts, stuck between 6 months and 6 month demand, 6 month supply, and now a new annual supply. Is there enough range for you to range trade this? You know, is it enough high probability in either direction to do swing trades and hold them? Like, probably neither. So this is not necessarily the most tradable chart, but again, we'll just see if it gives us any more follow-up. So that's it. I think we've covered all of the new majors, and I will make little short videos of all the summaries, so you can like keep an eye on the levels as you want. On all of the charts, I think, you know, just keep your eye on the weekly, the 3-day, the 5-day, you know, if these are things you're willing to trade, the dailies are still messy and chopping around, and then keep an eye on the triangles. You know, these are all corrections. Yes, they could all still break up, but, you know, get in on demand. Don't be trying to buy in supply until we know. So if there's something at demand, that's fine, just buy it. You've got a stop loss, not a problem. So I hope that's useful. Let me just Gary US dollar, I swear I know. Somebody came on the stream like this, God, what, 6 months ago, and asked me about Gary US dollar. Alright, I'll have a quick look at Gary again just to see. It's always interesting to see whether what I thought was going to play out, if my chart actually loads. If what I thought was going to play out actually did happen. Like, to be fair, I can't really remember what I said on Gary. I think there was pros and cons, like there always are. So this is my normal alt layout with some of the alerts that have come in. So I've had quite a lot of long alerts come in recently, and then 1 or 2 shorts, but mostly longs. Because obviously most things are dropping. So yeah, there's been quite a few long alerts to be traded across the alts. Okay, let me look at Gary. I never know. Disclosure: if you're just a Gary maximalist, or if you're like trapped in there and just really hoping that it's gonna come back or something. Excuse my internet, I think is obviously slowing down a bit again. I wonder which one I charted before. Might have to try a few of these before I find out which one I actually charted. It looks like it's barely done anything. I'll have one that's got drawings on it, so let me just try and find the one with drawings on it. There it is. Okay. Now I really can't remember when I charted this, but I'm guessing it's actually I've got a feeling it was here. And I know what my analysis would have been actually, although it'd be kind of interesting to go back and have a look at it. But okay, so we've got no new annual supply on that, no new 6 months, 3 months. So 3 months kind of got tested locally. So I certainly, and this kind of gives you actually a little bit of an idea of what I was thinking, what I'm talking about with the alts that I've just charted actually. So now I've got a 2 month in there, the close below is that, and then a monthly. So this now at least has a monthly demand in here, so there might be hope for you disclosure. So now it's got a monthly demand, it's already tested the 2 monthly supply, and it has played out. So what we're looking for, so as I always say, what we're looking for is when things come up and test, so when this comes up and tests into here, then I'm looking for the making a new low, I'm looking for the continuation of the downtrend. Right, now see this is a monthly supply, so that's not great, but so I'm looking for a continuation of the downtrend. So this is still potentially in a downtrend. In order for that downtrend to be over, we either need to see this break supply and then buy any new demand, and then this is a high probability demand, or we can just speculate that okay, it's had, you know, now 3 months of consolidation through here. Hopefully this is enough to just support the move through supply before it happens. But while you're trading that at this point in time, it still remains high risk because we're still coming off major supply. So this is now a monthly supply, so it's wicked up there. So what you're looking for is for it to hold a retest of here, but it's still very speculative because it hasn't broken supply. And so what I think I remember is I think disclosure was wanting me to be confident about longs here. I've got a vague recollection of that because we were testing this previous low. And I think, yeah, and I know me, so I'm guessing like the analysis I would have given is that, yeah, it might bounce here. You know, we are at a previous low, it did have a significant up move, but that the bigger trend on the monthly is still down, so I still expect to take out this low. And that's obviously what's happened. You know, it tried to take it out on a swing failure, like it did the stop hunt, but again, didn't make it back through supply before coming deeper. And now it has consolidated underneath, it's found resistance, it's made a double bottom. So there are signs here now that are a lot better than when I charted it here, but we still have the risk here that this monthly supply could play out for a lower low. However, there is absolutely nothing wrong with like looking, waiting, seeing if we get a retest here. You know, you can pick one of the lower levels in the side, do the fib to see where the 61 fib is to try and get some better accuracy on that level. You know, we'll DCA through there with your stop underneath if that's the kind of way you like to trade, and then see if this is the start of a new uptrend. But at the moment, again, this is still in a downtrend on the monthly, and it's still a retest. And again, you could say, you know, this looks strong, but then it looks strong here, and then it just kind of slowly faded out before the biggest down move. So, you know, is this going to come up here, do another kind of test, you know, maybe it'll make a new high, maybe not, and then just continue the down move. Again, I have no idea what the fundamentals are of this, if this is something you want to buy and hold forever. I have no idea. I don't know if disclosure or you're trapped in here. And that's why you've asked me to chart it yet again after another, you know, I don't know, what, 6 months to a year, probably after previously having asked me to chart it. But certainly it's looking better than when you asked me last time, I'll give you that, but we still need the confirmation, we still need to see demand hold here before we get another move up. Alright, let me just check there's no other questions. My voice is starting to fade now, I hope that's useful. I will do, like I say, I will do the summaries. So you've got like the sort of 2 minute version for those people who just like to see levels rather than have any interest in what the actual reason for the levels and the probabilities of the levels are. And feel free to come back to the video if you want to look at probabilities or ask me any questions. I have done this relatively fast, so I don't know if it's one of those things I'll probably go away and think about it and think, oh my god, forgot to say half the things I actually wanted to say. But yeah, so I hope that's useful and have a good afternoon.